Like any sales training program, if you want to create behavioral change, you have to provide an infrastructure or an environment that is going to create that behavioral change.
Everything leads to growth with the National Association of Sales Professionals. The Leads to Growth podcast with the National Association of Sales Professionals provides in-depth discussions, sharing the best sales, prospecting, influence, and communication skills, as well as sales training techniques to take your professional sales career to the next level.
All right. Welcome back. We've got podcast number 3 here. We're here with Mario Martinez Jr. and the NASP Leads to Growth podcast. Welcome, Mario.
Man, I'm super excited to be here with you. Thank you so much, Chris and Rick.
Man, we're very excited to have you here. And we've got some great stuff to talk about. And Mario is just an expert here on the B2B digital transformation. We've already had his CMO on the podcast, Bernie, a few weeks ago. And Mario is actually the CEO and founder of Vengresso. He spent 82 consecutive quarters in B2B sales and leadership. I like how you said quarters and not years, not aging yourself. Good move there. He is one of 20 sales influencers invited to appear in the Salesforce documentary film, The Story of Sales, which is amazing. Really, really high quality. I forwarded over to Rick not too long ago. That was launched in 2018. It was also named 2018's Top 10 Influencers by the Modern Sales Magazine. And Mario is the host of a popular podcast called Selling with Social. Mario, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. And I guess you could take 82 quarters and multiply it by, I guess, 4 quarters in the year and figure out how long I've been in sales. I mean, I don't know. You could translate years that way.
We're not interested in math on this show, right?
I need a calculator for that anyways.
Awesome. So Mario is going to be talking to us today about the 10 steps to launching a digital sales program. Just a great topic right now. We've got a lot of sales leaders out there, Mario, a lot of team leaders, and a lot of individual salespeople out there. So I think this is going to help a lot of people. So love for you to kind of get rolling. Let us know where one starts, and we'll finish off and see where we can help out in the middle.
So your question to me is what do you want me to answer first?
I'd love to hear. I would love to hear about your 10 steps to launching a digital sales program. Where do we start? Like, everybody's talking digital nowadays. Most people, when they hear digital sales, they think, I got to advertise on social media, and they don't understand the whole depth of the process. So would love for you to tell us, where do we get started in this whole process when we're thinking about digital sales and digital selling programs? Well,
I think it's important to define where you don't start, right? Because there's a lot of sales organizations that are out there that sales leaders are now figuring out, man, I got to do something different, because we're making out of 100 phone calls to be able to get to our prospect, we're only having 10 conversations. And the more that you call, the law of diminishing return kicks in, which is the more they call, the worse that you get, right? So everybody's trying to figure out, like, how the heck do I do something? How do I reach on social? Do I use video? Should I knock on doors? What are the different components of that? So one of the biggest mistakes that sales leaders and marketing leaders make is they'll call up experts such as those at Vengresso, and they'll say, hey, we're doing our sales kickoff. We want you to come in and teach us how to use LinkedIn. Okay, great. Do you have at least 2 days allocated for that? No, we want you to do it in an hour-long sales kickoff, a keynote. Okay, well, what do you want to accomplish out of that? Well, I want people to be fired up, and I want them to start using LinkedIn to be able to start prospecting, be able to start having conversations, to be able to convert them into meetings. So my answer is, well, are you planning on running or putting together a training program post the sales kickoff that actually helps them to, once we do the sales kickoff, when we talk about changing the mindset, if you would, right? The mindset that you should be utilizing these platforms, whether it's video, whether it's social, that you should be utilizing these platforms, that they're now ready, the appetite's wet, they're ready to go. They're like, what's next? Are you going to put a training program in place for them to actually learn how to do it? Well, no, not really. Well, what? How much might that cost? Can we do like a couple $1,000s for a day training? No, right? No, that's not the way it works, right? So the first thing that we do is we don't start with hiring some quote unquote LinkedIn consultant, some social selling trainer that's going to come in and do a half day, full day, 2 day training. No, That is the worst thing you could do. Save your money. Don't spend it with anyone, whether it's Vingresso or anybody else. That's the first thing that people need to know when looking at launching a digital selling program. The next thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to just think that you can teach someone something and then all of a sudden they can start executing on it. Like any sales training program, if you want to create behavioral change, you have to provide an infrastructure or an environment that is going to create that behavioral change. Right? And that's super critical that leaders who are listening in and sales reps, you may be on your own. Your leader may not even believe in utilizing digital platforms. And if that's the case, I encourage you to go look for a new job. But that having been said, if you're in that situation, you go do it on your own. Don't just throw money out and say, I'm going to go take this training. You've got to understand how to create behavioral change. And so that's really what you want to be focused on is when looking at a digital sales program. And so the program that I'm going to talk about with you guys today is what I call the 10 stages to a digital selling program. Now, this is very important. It's not just because Vingresso, the largest digital sales transformation service provider globally, having served over 100,000 professionals and 2,000 companies, says it's the right thing to do. Mic drop. Says it's the right thing to do. This is actually taken from when I sat in the seat a little over 3 years ago as the VP of sales for a software collaboration company. And I implemented a program with 120 US domestic sellers, 350 international sellers. And the result of that program was the first time that LinkedIn themselves had any enterprise customer accomplish two things. Number one, 100% rep adoption, meaning 100% of the reps were actually utilizing, in this case, LinkedIn, to be able to prospect, engage, connect, and feed their network. That had never been done before. Number two, 100% of the reps attributed at least one sales opportunity to the open pipeline, closed lost, or closed won. That had never been done before. So LinkedIn asked me to speak at their annual users conference. And if brand equity looked like, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see this on the video, but if brand equity looked like a straight line, and I'm holding my arm out right here, it looks like a straight line going in to speaking at one of the largest social media companies in the world in front of thousands of their customers, it all of a sudden did just like that, straight line above. And that's actually how I launched my company 3 months later, M3 Junior Growth Strategies, which was later merged underneath Vingresso. About a little over a year ago. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about is helping everyone understand whether you're a sales rep trying to convince your boss that we should actually do something different, right? That's the definition of insanity, doing something over and over again, expecting different results. So do something different. Or whether you're a sales leader listening in saying, I got to do something different to be able to reach our targeted prospects. Now,
and to touch on a point real quick, and I want to just touch to confirm what you just said, doing something different doesn't always mean, oh, let me go put my money somewhere else. Sometimes it's like you said, it's changing the behavior, right? Changing the way that you try to implement, changing the plan or the strategy. It's not necessarily just changing the market or the field in which you invest that money.
Yeah, and a lot of leaders hate the word change, right? Because they're fearful of what has always worked. Look, everybody who's primarily in the VP level position is about 40 years and older. Now, is there some exceptions to the rule? Sure, absolutely. But generally, most VPs of sales are 40 and older. We've grown up selling the way we sold. For that matter, I'm pretty positive, Chris, I'm going to go on a whim here and say you and I probably actually used to knock on business parks or knock on doors at business parks.
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, yes. Several. My knuckles got sore a long time.
So the reality is trying to knock on a business park today, you're going to get thrown out and or arrested for trespassing, right? Now, there may be some few exceptions to the rule and whatnot. But so my point is that, what sales leaders need to understand is that the buyer has changed the game on us. Mm-hmm. And we as sales leaders need to adapt or die to the way the modern buyer wants us to engage and or sell.
Beautifully said.
So 10 stages to what I consider to launching a digital sales program. And this is really like taking tried and true, proven from my days of sitting in the VP of sales shoes and now implementing it at companies like Cisco, CenturyLink, large organizations that we have, from the super large to the super small, where we have 10 salespeople that we've worked with. So first off, you need to define the desired outcome and then establish your KPIs. Now, most leaders ask me when I talk about this, they're like, okay, great. So what are the results in terms of ROI of your sales training program? Well, the answer to that question, if you're implementing a digital selling program, the answer is 0. And that usually raises an eyebrow. Those of you probably listening are like, wait, what?
wait, why do they even have this guy on? I don't get it.
$0. Here's why. We don't control from the moment that a rep picks up the phone and says, hello. That is one of the other 150 sales training companies that are out there, the Miller Hymans of the world, Corporate Visions, any of the other big, great companies that have these giant brand names, Sandler's, etc. Those are those companies that start from the hello afterwards. I can't control.
You could support that too a little bit, just FYI.
What's that?
Just FYI, NASP could support that a little bit too. So
I'm sorry. Let me rewind that. Let me rewind that.
There you go. My man.
Part out. All right. So we stop at the word hello.
Makes sense.
And the other great organizations, training organizations like NASP and some of the other great big ones, there's 150 different training companies that are out there. They continue on from the word hello and beyond. Phone voice, the art of negotiation, the art of relationship building, contract negotiations, right? All of those programs, sales training programs, focus in on that piece. Where we focus in at is the digital prospecting, how to get more hellos, right? So that's really the key from a digital prospecting is when you look at the defining the desired outcome, you've got to be on the same page between your sales operations and your marketing team that we're actually driving towards more hellos, more conversations with more qualified buyers. Then you need to look at how to establish the KPIs to measure that, right? And that's where you look at, for example, this is one of the craziest things, and I talk to leaders about this all the time. And I ask them, so what sales tools do you have in your sales tech stack? And they'll mention, various different tools: Salesforce.com, Discover.org, Seamless.ai, SalesLoft, you name it. There's a bazillion sales techs. There's over 700 now, actually, right, in the sales tech stack. Then my next question to them is what is the ROI on that tool? Well, I don't know, but I know my sales reps can't live without LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Well, how do you know? How much revenue has come as a result of that? So some of the KPIs are both behavioral, right? In terms of measuring, did you actually improve your LinkedIn profile? Did you actually start sending out messaging? Has your connection rate gone up, right? Those are like things that you can measure from a digital sales prospecting perspective. The other components are more empirical data that you have to look at amending your CRM. And for sales leaders listening in right now, if you don't know of your 5 tech stack tools in the sales tech stack, if you don't know what the ROI is, here's the trick on how to go about doing that. What we'd implemented was something that it's nirvana, and it shouldn't really be nirvana here, right? All we did was inside of Salesforce, we added in the 8 tools that our sales team was using. Right at the top of the account area where you put in the person's name, email, phone number, address, right? And the same area. And they could not hit save unless they selected the digital tools that they were using or sales tools that they were using to open that opportunity. And it was a multi-select. It could be Discover.org. It could be, SalesLoft, whatever, right? It could be multiple, or there could have been none. But they couldn't get past go until they put that in. Then when they went to close the opportunity, close won, close lost, whichever one it was, that box popped right back up again before they could hit submit and save. And it was, what tools did you use to close this particular opportunity, right? And now what we gave us was, you may be using some tools on the front end, like a Zoom Info as an example, right? Or Seamless.ai. But on the back end, you may have used LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You may have used Discover.org or any of those types of tools that helped you throughout the sales process. So those are some of the things that we want to be able to measure and track and make sure you implement before you start, for that matter, before you start buying LinkedIn Sales Navigator, which is $1,100 a person per year, which is the most expensive sales tool in the tech stack. Go figure out how to measure the ROI of those particular tools, and that's the secret tip of how to do that.
Absolutely. No, utilization, I think you just kind of hit on several times that utilization in the digital media platform I apologize, guys. Got a little noise in the background there. We'll go ahead and pause this for a second. I apologize.
Did you flush?
No, it's not coming in too loud.
Okay, good. Oh, well.
That's all right. That makes for a great talk show.
I froze the screen, took a quick break, came back.
We heard you flush. You left your phone on.
I got the landscaping crew outside doing some work. But no, you said utilization, talked really about people want to just throw money at an idea or a concept without putting a plan together, without putting proper KPIs to measure that plan, and then go back and reevaluate that plan to make sure that it's working. And I think that strategy is just really brilliant for no matter what you're doing, especially when you're starting to invest in a digital media platform like this.
Absolutely. And those are the things that we help organizations out with. Now that moves us into step number 2, which is really looking at the buyer identification and the mapping of that process. And this is super important because you need to understand who is it that you're selling to. And believe it or not, most sales reps, when you ask them, who do you help? They'll tell you, well, we sell to, IT directors, with whatever the problem is that they're trying, or whatever the product is they're trying to sell. And then you look at the mapping piece, the buyer identification. That's usually who they know. And the mapping piece basically says, well, what business problem are you solving? Who else have you done it for? Now, if you ask most sales reps, what business problem do you solve for your particular buyer type, by buyer title? So you may have a director of IT, you may have a CIO, you may have even a multi-product component like an Oracle as an example, where they sell to marketing, the sales line of business, and the IT line of business, right? So do you understand what the business problem is that you're solving for each of those individual buyers? Then the third question, which is usually where we'll stump them, if they know number 2, the number 3 is who else have you done it for? Right? And most people stop there. And this is where we need to really draw that out of the marketing team. We need to draw that out of the sales enablement operations team. We need to bring that stuff in, and we have worksheets that we work with our buyers on when we implement these programs to understand that buyer mapping process, because that is going to be critical when we get to one of the other steps, which is really about step number 6, and that's creating buyer-centric profiles. You need to know that in order to transform the profiles of your individual reps. So once we understand that, now we go to step number 3. And step number 3 is we look at, do you have content for sales that you are creating, curating, and most importantly, have a distribution strategy for that? So a lot of organizations publish product-based marketing slicks. This is our product. This is what it does. This is the nuts and bolts. But what we really need is the how-tos, the what-tos, the whys, the 7 things that you need to, right? The listicles, as an example, that we call them. We need that because every single, and I'm a selling CEO, I do not step out of the selling role. I always have opportunities in the sales pipeline, and I am competing against the salespeople, the CSO, and every other person in our organization. I am competing. I'm a selling CEO.
Dude is selling.
So what I need to know is this sales content that we've got, or this content that you've got, do you have a distribution strategy for that? Because one of the things about digital is if I connect with you, say on Twitter or on LinkedIn from a social perspective, or I send you a video message and I bring you into my contact folder, it doesn't mean that it's going to turn immediately into a conversation. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to book a meeting, right? And this is where a lot of salespeople get super frustrated. It's like, oh, it doesn't work. Well, did you connect with them? Yeah, I connected with them, but then went nowhere from there. What did you send them after you connected? And that's the critical milestone right there, is that most reps want to convert a new connection into, let's go jump into bed.
Yeah.
You can't go jump into bed. Well, usually you can't. You usually can't take the person home the night you meet them at the bar, right? Usually. Some people are pretty good. Rick's like, well, it depends on how much swagger you've got. No, but in all honesty, in most cases, you've got to date. You got to do a little bit of dating. And that dating process is that you connected. Thanks so much for connecting with me. Here's usually like what I usually send out. Thanks so much for connecting me on LinkedIn as an example. Generally, when I'm working with VPs of sales, there are 2 problems they have. Number 1, they're looking to create more conversations with more qualified buyers. Those are the 2 problems that most VPs of sales have. And the third one, which is usually the biggest one, is how to convert those items right there I just mentioned, more conversations with more qualified buyers, into opportunity that actually closes. Those are the things that we care about, because you can't get to the opportunity closing without having more conversations. Yep. And if those conversations have to be qualified with the right buyers, right? So those are the things that we care about. So content is super important. And this is where we work with the marketing side. And this is where that really sales and marketing start working together. It's very important that you've got that content. You got the content that maps to the buyer's journey, and you've got a distribution strategy for that. Meaning you've got a platform like a everyonesocial.com or a Gagalamp that you're utilizing to be able to distribute that content across the organization and within the sales team into your networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc.
That's beautiful. You know, when we had Bernie on, he was talking about this, the content for sales, and he had mentioned that statistic that comes from Vengresso over there. 82%, I believe it's 82% of B2B buyers consume at least 5 pieces of content from the winning vendor, which that stat just is staggering. If you're not putting out content, you're just really missing the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if it was the exact percentage of 82%. If that's what he said, then that's legit. But what I do know is that there's 5 to 8 pieces of content that are consumed by the customer from the winning vendor, right? And so that content piece is critical. Video, etc. Video, blogs, ebooks, those types of things. Now, once you've got those first 3 things, the fourth step is, all right, what are the tools that are actually going to help me get there, right?
And there's so many. How do you figure out which tools to use? That's a question I hear all the time. There's so many options.
Exactly. So, you could keep it simple. The general tools that I would recommend to begin your digital sales program are going to be pretty easy if you follow this recommendation, right? First, you're going to need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Do you have to launch LinkedIn Sales Navigator? No. In fact, 50% of our clients are non-Navigator customers. Will you have greater adoption and have better results and be able to manage to those KPIs that you want to manage to? Yes, absolutely. Are you going to pay for it? You bet your life you will, right? So first off, for the social side, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Twitter is going to be free for you to use. And if you're selling to super small business, especially, business owners, Facebook is a nice spot, and that's usually free as well. The other tool that you're going to need is decide on, depending on the maturity level of your organization, you may want to go into a video sales acceleration platform. We recommend onemob.com. OneMob is the tool out there that is going to get you where you want to go quickest, fastest for sales, video marketing for salespeople. And the third thing will be a content distribution tool. And that content distribution tool, otherwise known as employee advocacy, oftentimes called sales advocacy. Everyonesocial.com and Gagalamp, those are the 2 partners that we have selected. And there's strategic reasons why we've chosen those folks. So now you choose your tools. Whether you do all 3 of them, whether you start one baby step at a time, we help you figure that out, right? And what the right step is. Now, what you need to do is you need to develop customized playbooks. Those customized playbooks basically say, what the heck does a rep say when, by the way, Rick Middlemass has looked at my LinkedIn profile? Let's pretend Rick is a VP of sales, which he is, and he's my targeted buyer, which he's my partner in this case. But in the case of this scenario, you're a potential buyer. You have a sales organization. I want to turn around and I potentially want to sell to you. Why did you look at my profile? I don't know. Maybe some content that I put out. Maybe it was somebody else who liked a piece of content. Maybe it was because I looked at yours. Who knows? But you looked at my profile. What do I say? Do I just hit the connect button and send go? No, because likely they're going to look at me, Rick's going to look at me and say, I don't know, Mario's this other sales guy, right? Rather, what do I say as a personalized connection request out to Rick that actually gets him to engage back with me? That's number 1. What about messaging? Now that you've connected, what do you say? What are the pieces of content that you will give them? And these are the things that you want to develop. Because, by the way, as a sales guy, this is my 21st year in sales.
Ding.
I'm stupid. I'm just going to say it. I don't want to have to think. I want marketing to deliver the messaging. I want people to tell me. And then once I've got the baseline, I'll adjust it to my personality type. I might not say, that really doesn't apply to my market or my type of buyers. I might change it up a little bit, right? And so I want it to hit the easy button, right? It's that big old giant, red easy button that you see on the TV commercials. Yes, sir. And what you want to do is create these playbooks that has the messaging that provides the individual search strings. For example, if you're going to teach me how to use LinkedIn, fantastic. Kickstart me, right? Mm-hmm. Show me the search strings using Boolean search strings that allow me to be able to segment my target market list in my specific territory, in my specific vertical, if required. Don't make me have to sit there and figure it all out. Right. That's that developing customized playbooks, which is step number 5. You have to do that, because if all you do is launch a tool with LinkedIn, your program, most of our customers and our big enterprise customers, they're the customers that we love. LinkedIn, by the way. They're a very good partner of ours and they're a friend, and that's why we advocate for the tool. But every single time they walk in, they tell they're going to do all this training and give all this free stuff. By the way, we all know sales training is never freaking free. So when someone tells you you're going to give you free training, that you're going to expect, in this case, you're going to get product-based training. So most of our big Fortune 100, Fortune 500 customers are the ones that come to us and say, hey, we've had LinkedIn Sales Navigator for 2 or 3 years. We only have 20% or less adoption. We're really struggling to be able to make this work. Can you help us with some behavioral changes so we can get better results? Right. And that's because LinkedIn's not going to develop your customized playbooks. And guess what? Your marketing team won't do it because they don't know what to say. And your sales leaders, most of us are 40 and older. You probably don't even know how to use LinkedIn, Twitter, let alone Facebook for business. Right. Yeah. So these are the areas that you've got to make sure that you work with an organization, whether it's us or somebody else, that organization that you work with is truly going to develop the playbook for you that has the messaging for almost all the circumstances.
And I love your focus on building habits and allowing those habits to achieve the results, Mario. You know, it's something we preach here at NASP often. Too often people go out there and they'll throw some money or throw some time into something, and they're like, all right, where's the deal? Where's the magic? You know, well, it's not working for you. I'm done. But, you know, it's about building that habit, and like you said, behavioral change, and eventually those habits produce results.
Yeah. Well, they're looking for the sprinkling of the pixie dust, right? Exactly. The pixie dust does not exist, and if it does, make sure someone.
I've been sprinkling pixie dust on $1 million deals for a long time. That's too much.
But you know, I spent whatever last 15 minutes I've been talking about this. Notice how in the first 5 steps of the 10-step process, that nowhere inside those first 5 steps did I mention the word train. I don't know if you got that. Those of you listening in, I haven't even talked about training, because that doesn't come until step number 7. So
planning, aligning beliefs, aligning the strategy,
aligning the KPIs, making sure you select the tools. Do you have the right content? Yeah.
So real quick on development, developing the custom playbooks, is a lot of that some of the automation as well, the follow-up automation, or is that?
Well, not automation as in terms of technology, but in terms of scripts. So as an example, yes, I connected with you. Now, what do I say? Absolutely, right?
So you base those levels. You have templates that you use over and again to perfect them, and then just rock those out.
Yeah, and for each client. So, and sometimes it's unique and different based upon who you sell to. For example, we might have in the customized playbook that says, you know, generally when I connect with VPs of sales, there are 2 business problems they're trying to solve. Well, that might change to if you're selling to IT leaders. Generally, when I connect to CIOs, there are 2 business problems they're trying to solve, right? So the messaging is the same. It's you know, changing it to the buyer.
Making the tweaks and the personalization aspect.
Exactly right. Yeah. So now you get into step number 6, and this to me is like the most, you know, it's the low hanging fruit in terms of being able to kickstart your program. When I was in the seat, when we launched the program in the first 45 days, we had about 5% rep adoption of our particular program, and LinkedIn was right behind us. They were helping to train. I had, you know, a phenomenal relationship manager in CSM, loved them to death, but our program didn't kick off. And that's because they came in and they did the first training. Everybody got all excited. We're like, okay, we're going to learn this new LinkedIn thing. We're going to sprinkle the pixie dust and all that good stuff. And the first training was how to create a buyer-centric profile so that you can actually attract your targeted buyer, right? That's what we talked about. And good news is it's right on. It's spot on, right? You have to be able to convert your LinkedIn profile from a resume to a resource, because first off, a new buyer does not care about whether or not you are a quota-crushing sales rep, you are the all-time best-time negotiator, whether or not you've been to President's Club for 10 or 15 years in a row. They could care less about that. What they care about is who you help, how you help, and what business problem you solve. Then, once you've established that, now what they care about is, are you the individual that can help them? And that's where some of the credibility things like, President's Club earner, people, those types of things are of value. Mm-hmm. So it's super important that you transform the buyer profiles. Now, for those that are marketing that are listening in, the most craziest thing that I still don't understand yet is if you were to ask a CMO, would you like 1,000 mini companyabc.com sites out there for free that are all driving website traffic right back to the mothership? Everyone's like, yeah. Well, go change your 1,000 salespeople that you've got and provide them a branded LinkedIn profile template that speaks to the buyer of who you help, how you help, what business problem you solve. That, by the way, is embedded with all the multimedia. Because, by the way, Chris, Rick, what do you stop at on social media? What are the 2 things that you stop at when you're scrolling through your feed?
Videos.
Pictures. Boom. Those are the 2 things that we stop at. So why on God's green earth do we think that we shouldn't include that into our profile, just like the way you have it on your companyabc.com site? You have pictures, you have videos, you have graphics to bring people in, right? To explain. LinkedIn has made it easy for us to do that. And the marketing organization just hasn't figured that out. And so that's why for the individual sales rep or marketer, we do LinkedIn profile redos. We have a whole entire program around that. But for the enterprise, we're working with companies that are rolling out 1,000 new LinkedIn profiles we have a whole system and program that we've done that with, because all of my partners at Vingresso, whether it was Vivica with her 10-year-long business, Bernie with his 15-year-long business, or Kurt Shaver with his 7-year-long business, that were all teaching social and digital selling, training, and strategy. What they knew is every time they went in, they did exactly what LinkedIn did, which is you go and train and tell people how to change their profile. The reality is I could train you right now, Chris and Rick, but you are not going to go back and write 2,000 characters for your summary. You're not going to write 2,000 characters for your experience section. You're not going to transform your headline. And you are certainly not going to go out to your mothership, the blog, the YouTube site to go find valuable content that you think might map to your business, to your clients. It won't happen. If
I didn't do it before, well, I can do it now, right?
Yeah, and this is what happened when I was in the seat. We had LinkedIn come in and train, and when they did that, everybody was gung-ho. We said, ready, break. We hit the activate, watch Mission Impossible. Everybody got the alert on their watch, and here they are. They're like, great, where do I go? What do I say? Right. What do I write? I'm not a writer. I don't like writing. Should I have someone
writing about myself?
Exactly. So how we really drove results was I said, 45 days into it, I said, oh, no. Something's not right here. What I know is that if you're a sales rep and you get a brand new car, what do you want to do? Rick, what do you want to do with a brand new car once you get it? Drive it. You want to drive that car. You want to show it off, baby. And so that's what I knew that every sales rep generally wants to do is drive that car. So what did we do? We gave them a brand new Cadillac with a completely redone profile, a template that made them look now sexy, powerful, attract their targeted buyer. And this is what we do on the corporate side, as well as for the individuals, right? So transform that profile. That's step number 6.
I can just imagine the feeling that they would get going into a program already built, looking like dialed in, like you're talking about, like the feeling you would get when you go in it, as opposed to the feeling that you get knowing that I have to rework everything on the screen right now. Like just that, interesting.
Well, first off, it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah, it's very much so.
Think about writing a proposal. What's that, Rick?
It's like 20 hours of work to go and redo, your whole profile and write this, write that, get this video.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a few hours worth of work, especially if you're not a writer, right? It's not that much work, but the reality is look, we don't even like writing proposals, right? We want the proposal templates done for us, and we just want to fill in the blanks, which is the pricing, right?
Yeah.
Let alone write 2,000 characters of content times 2 for your summary and experience section, and then go find the multimedia. So once you do that, once you enable the sales organization to have the cool, sexy profile that actually answers the questions of who you help, how you help, and what business problem you solve, and brings in the multimedia, now you've given them a tool, you've given them the new Cadillac, you've given them the new car, and the very next thing they're going to say is, what next?
Right.
What do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
And now you move on into step number 7, whether you're teaching them how to use video, and there's different providers that are out there. I mentioned OneMob earlier in this podcast, onemob.com. There's different providers that are out there that that provide video sales acceleration tools. And video is hot. Like, first off, 59% of corporate business executives share at least one work-related video weekly.
Boom.
Right? YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. Cisco, who knows a little thing about this world called the internet? I don't know, small little player in the world of the internet. Cisco published a study in September of 2017, so less than a year ago, that showcased, based upon current traffic trends, by the year 2021, so just a couple years away, 81% of the world's internet traffic that is consumed will be as a result of watching video, right? So maybe that's the tool that you start out with. I don't know. Either way, if you start out with video or you start out with social, from a digital perspective, you need to teach the skill set. For example, using video. I could send you a video, but I may suck. Do you realize that in the first 7 seconds, it's called thin slicing, and in that first 7 seconds, I'm going to make an opinion of, do I continue watching or do I cut it off? You got 7 seconds to capture that buyer. What are you going to say to keep that buyer engaged? Right? If you think about social, same exact thing. If I reach out to you and all I do is diarrhea of the mouth in terms of product and pitch, I've lost my buyer on the first click on that connection. So how do I bring them value in terms of a business problem that helps them to see that I understand the industry, the pain, the problem that they're going through? And even though they may not be in a position to buy, ready to buy, or want to buy at that moment in time, you now can become a trusted advisor because you're approaching it in a very different way, in a consultative way. And this goes back to the true sales consulting, if you would, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the digital sales training. Is we're gonna teach people, and you want to teach people how to fish and where to fish. By the way, I think of this analogy as the fishing analogy. Before you go teach someone how to fish and where to fish at, you need to make sure they got the right fishing pole, because you can't go catch sharks with a pole that you're used to catch salmon.
Right.
So the point is the fishing pole, getting the right fishing pole is your brand. That's step number 6, is you make sure you have the right brand. Teaching them how to fish and where to fish, that's step number 7, is teaching them how to fish and where to fish. And the content piece, right, making sure that they've got the right bait for their hook, the content piece, that is critical. And that is why those 3 elements, the branding, the training, and the content, all go hand in hand in terms of what you're going to deliver for a digital sales training program.
That's beautiful.
Now, step number 8 is driving adoption through gamification and recognition. So as any sales training program that you're going to launch, you cannot just say, I'm going to hire this LinkedIn consultant. It's only going to charge me a couple $1,000. Come in and do this LinkedIn training. Save your money. Do it right? You have to look at driving gamification and recognition. Salespeople love to compete. They love to be recognized. In fact, some people will take the recognition over the money.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, significance. Ooh, it's a powerful drug.
Absolutely. So you need to develop a program of what is it that you're going to gamify. And it should be tied back to step number 1, which is your KPIs that you're going after.
Absolutely.
So if your KPIs is you want people to adopt and have behavioral change, and you want them to be able to start connecting and messaging and those types of things, then guess what? You should probably gamify the individuals that create their profile with the most complete profile, the quickest, fastest, and best. That's one idea, right? The next one might be, hey, you want to create more conversations with more qualified buyers. What's the KPI you should measure? I don't know. How about how many new connections do you have in your network? If you're at 500 connections today and you are only connected to one buyer in your entire target list of 50 people, 50 customers, we all know on average it's about 6.8 buyers in one single decision. So now we take your 50 accounts that you're given, as if you're in named accounts, or maybe you're in more general business where you've got thousands of accounts, doesn't matter. what you need to look at is developing part of your training strategy is developing a program that drives a connection strategy. Because the connection strategy is kind of like more phone calls, right? The more phone calls you make, hopefully you'll be able to have more conversations. That's the kind of the idea.
Numbers game.
So connections will drive more potential conversations. And so you want to gamify that and look at the connections growth inside your particular network. If you're doing video as an example, you want to gamify the open rates. You want to gamify the length of time that someone's actually watching your video. Right? Those are the things that you care about. So that's step number 8.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Since we talk about gamifying the creation of videos and stuff like this and the content, have you seen gamification in the marketing world where creators of content are in a gamification place like that, or just sales? The reason I ask is because you made a little point about how long somebody stays in a video. That would just be very interesting to me to see if there were marketing people out there that were gamifying their results as well.
I think, first off, it's a great idea. I think it'd be a little harder on the marketing side because usually they're measured on results. How many net new leads did you bring to the marketplace? How many conversions did that take place? How much did you grow in terms of website foot traffic, right? How far is your social media reach?
Yeah.
They're measured on the things that produce the results.
There's far too many good KPIs out there to look at something off the wall like that. But yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I think I'm noticing that the process here, I really love how you start with the desired outcome. You start with the vision. All right, let's first figure out where we're going and how we're going to measure when we get there. You align a beautiful plan and a strategy and then the systems to put in place. And then you give people the beautiful car and then you train them how to use it. And now you've got them moving. So now you've got the momentum on your side, which I really love, as opposed to starting and then slowing down. Let's fix everything, get everything aligned, and then starting again and then going back. You really have like a rev up process.
So here's a question around that. So at NASP, we love conditioning, right? We almost kind of consider ourselves more of a conditioning organization than a training organization, to kind of go along with what we've been talking about. I'm very curious, what have you found are great tools, technologies, how to gamify the sales process? How do you maybe, I'm assuming, create some type of a dashboard for the salespeople to see who's winning every day? What are your favorite technologies for that? How do you like to set up the gamification, the kind of, in a way, forced conditioning element?
So here's the good news is many of the tools and apps actually have some gamification built in. For example, everyonesocial.com and Gagalamp, they actually have leaderboards already built in so that you can see who actually is the doing the most shares, but as a point system, who's doing the most shares as an example, who's actually driving the most clicks back into branded content. So if you have that, if you have a point system, that's you got your leaderboard right there in front of you.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You put that front and center, and the leadership team is behind it, and you are in your weekly leadership meetings as the VP of sales. You're looking at that and you're saying, all right, sales director 1, sales director 2, sales director 3, man, your team really sucks. Look at the board, right? You got to make that as part of your conversation in terms of KPIs. If you're measuring, a lot of sales leaders, and this is what I did as well, as a lot of sales leaders, we get laser focused in on, all right, what's going to close? What's going to close? What's going to close? What do we have closing this month, right?
Yep.
Well, it is just as important to talk about what do you freaking got in the pipeline, right? And it is as important as well, if not more important, before you even get to the pipeline discussion, I mentioned this earlier, is are you doing the right things that are going to get you more pipeline? And this is where digital prospecting comes into play, is really that step, the step zero, the ground zero, if you would, before you get to step number 3, which is closing. And that is, what are the things they're going to do? So a lot of the tools like Everyone's Social, they have the gamification built in. Sales Navigator actually has some gamification built in, more of a top 5 type of scenario. So what we work with clients on is actually exporting that raw data and putting it into a nice, pretty spreadsheet that actually helps to gamify, what that looks like. Should they have a gamification program? You better believe it. Are they going to do something? I don't know. And in terms of other types of gamification programs that are more general to sales, level Level 11 is one that's out there that really does a good job with putting together programs for gamifying sales contests and those types of things and keeping things in front. And I don't know if they want to be known exclusively for that, but that's certainly one tool that comes to mind.
Beautiful. And I love how you said the sales leaders have to align with that gamification. It can't be, we've got to align our rewarding process with our KPIs, right? Those things have to be very aligned. I like that.
And it has to be ingrained in the conversation. Like sales leaders, like, look, if you're saying, hey, sales rep, why didn't you upgrade your profile? And your profile still looks like boo-boo?
Exactly.
Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. By the way, sales leaders that are listening in to this conversation, newsflash, you're going out and looking at a candidate's LinkedIn profile prior to them stepping into your office, and you're looking at them to determine whether or not they might be a good fit for your organization. Guess what? Mm-hmm. They're looking at yours to see if you're the type of leader that they want to work for, if you're the leader that can take them to the next level, if you're the leader that other people talk about and say you can bring them to whatever it is that you promised to bring them to, right? They're also looking at culture. How do you figure out culture? Not by what's on the company pages. Of course, what's on the company page is going to be like all the wonderful things about culture and, this, that, and the other. They're looking at what you talk about and how you recognize your people. And they're looking at your leadership style. What's your philosophy? So if those things aren't contained into your LinkedIn profile as a leader, which is slightly different than a sales rep, you're missing the boat as well. And, you've got to set the example, just like a parent. You tell your children, don't steal. Well, if you're out shoplifting and your kids see you, what are they going to do? Right? So you got to practice what you preach.
I agree. I really agree. And I love that concept that, in this day and age of millennials and Gen Yers looking to work with somebody for purpose, I mean, that is so valuable to them. They're not about just a paycheck anymore. People will jump ship quickly these days. So, and we all know that what it costs to hire a new employee is just outrageous and sinking a lot of companies with that turnover. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It's not just do it because you want everybody else to, as a sales leader, not just finish your account because you want everybody else in your team to do it, but to understand the benefits of the same way for you as well.
Yeah, I love what you said. I mean, it's so true that new talent is looking to work for somebody with purpose, and it's absolutely true. And that kind of leads me into step number 9, honestly, Chris, which is the measure and adapt for improvement. So, when you're doing your KPI reviews with as a sales manager, frontline, or as a director or above, you got to make it a weekly conversation. Are your new connections going up? Whether you're in named accounts or whether you're in general business or whether you're in growth or whether you're a farmer, doesn't named accounts, doesn't matter. The reality is that you have on average 6.8 buyers inside of any one specific account. If you're selling to smaller business, like a small business, it probably is likely 2 to 3, right? If you're selling to the large biz, you better believe it's at least 6 to 7 people. There's a committee there. And you've got to incorporate the weekly KPI reviews into the conversations with your reps. You got to make sure that the social engagement or the video messages that you are sending out and the results are actually being recorded inside your CRM for reporting purposes. You've got to have that two-way sync inside there. You got to look at what is and what is not working, and then work with an organization like ourselves that has the coaching program to say, you know what, my guys aren't getting results. Why? Let's peel back the onion. All right, let's see what they're not doing. Well, maybe the reason why they're not getting results is because they're not connecting with anybody new. So they have nobody really to talk to. So it's not really that they're not getting results. It's that they're not doing what it is that you asked them to do, right? As an example. And then if the playbook, the messaging that has been developed, if it needs to be tweaked, maybe the 2 business problems that you thought were the 2 business problems that resonated with buyers are not the real problems. Maybe it's something different. So that's where, step number 9 is you're really working with the sales enablement and operations team to look at how to measure and adapt for improvement. And then that leads you to really the step number 10, and that is you're going to continue coaching for continuous improvement. You've got to lead with the data. The data's in front of you. You've got the data. You got to focus on the current deals, and you got to work with the reps to drive behavioral change for better success. Like with cold calling, like with negotiations, like with relationship selling, any one of those segments of teaching a skill set to a sales rep requires constant coaching, constant improvement, constant continuous improvement and growth. It does not change just because you change the medium for prospecting from a cold call to a social engagement, from a social engagement to a video engagement, from a video engagement to a text engagement. It does not change. The medium doesn't change the normal course of action that we teach and grow and help salespeople to drive and be better. So that is step number 10, and that's the final step.
Love it, Mario. Really love it. And I love that. I love how you started and closed with the simplicity of it all. Look, we don't have to get away from the foundational principles that worked in every other type of medium or every type of media that we use. Let's keep those processes, the follow-up. I mean, content for sales is really added value follow-up, right? I mean, before we had all this great social media and email and stuff, it was, hey, let me stop back and drop off a flyer, or let me come back and sit down and answer some of those questions with you again, the old way. And that those things still work. And I love also that it's not about just sending the email or the digital, hey, you ready to make a decision? You ready to move yet? It's adding more value to them, helping them come to a decision that they're happy with. And you really have to know who your buyers are to do that.
So I'll tell you a quick story. And I personally think that this is one of the best sales engagements that I personally have ever had. And you're welcome to link back and put this story into the podcast of the company. We recently purchased Conversica software. Now, Conversica is probably one of the hottest AI sales technologies that is out there. And our rep was Simi Kerr, Kaur. Now, Simi was by far one of the best sales reps I have ever worked with from a VP of sales standpoint or from a buyer standpoint. Here's why. Every single engagement that she had with us when she was reaching out to touch us to help walk us through the process. And by the way, this process was over 9 months, something like that. Every single time it was a check-in point. What's going on? The latest and greatest. We have this new integration that we've just launched that you've been asking about. What the check-in points. She always followed up with, oh, by the way, I found this great piece of content that was about whatever it might have been, that specifically was about digital engagement, lead prospecting, lead development, right? All up on our sales, our alley, because we're digital sales influencers, right? Mm-hmm. So, but generally it tied back to lead development, lead engagement, which is obviously tied back into what they do, right? Conversica is the AI-enabled SDR. And I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. The results will prove itself out. But phenomenal salesmanship, because she even went down to the point of, hey, Mario, I saw you recently published blah, 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 blah. And after seeing that article, I actually made me think of, and it was one of the articles in their repository. Right? Which brought me back to Conversica.com, which made me say, freaking this sales rep knows what she's doing. She knows how to sell. She knows how to engage. She's reading my content. She's engaged with me. Now, not every person is as social as I am, but my point is that regardless of whether I was social or not, she knew we had a business problem. We have thousands of leads that come in every single month. And do we have fallout? Do we have fall through? Do we have things that fall through? No follow through at all. Yes, yes, and yes, right? So all the content that she was providing to me on every touch point, where she had to do a check back in 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, whatever it was, had information related to the business problem that I was trying to solve. And that is one of the reasons I felt compelled to buy, honestly. I love that. I could not buy because of how amazing the salesperson was. So hopefully she's not getting recruited away from Conversica after this.
Get recruited anywhere. I think it's Vingresso.
Yeah. Cindy was rock solid. But that really awesome. Shows that, she really understood the idea behind leading.
And that's the most beautiful thing, when she can sell like that, and she can use the tools of somebody like yourself who's teaching people to use those tools, and it feels genuine and pure and like she's doing it for a purpose to add value to your life, as opposed to trying to get something from you. I mean, that's the cherry on the sundae right there.
You got it. That's exactly. Beautiful.
Man, this has been great, Mario. I really appreciate the time. I know our audience is going to love this. I know Rick and I already got some notes that we're going to put some things to action already. But if you wouldn't mind, before we close, just tell our audience where they can learn from you more, my friend.
Sure. So you can reach out to vengreso.com, VENGRESO. You certainly can follow me on Twitter at M as in Mario _3 JR. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. But do me a favor, for those of you listening in, I will absolutely accept your connection requests if you personalize it. So make sure you personalize the connection request. And if you don't know how to do that, send me a message and say, I don't know how to do that. I want to send your personalized connection request. And I heard you on this particular podcast. So that'll be helpful for identifying, why you're reaching out to me.
Boom. I love it. And don't forget to check out Mario on his podcast. You can find on the Vengreso website, social or Selling with Social. Lots of good stuff in there every week. And Mario, thanks a lot, my friend. Have a great week, and there'll definitely be some more coming from you real soon in this in NASP, I'm sure.
Rick and Chris, fantastic being on your show. Thanks so much for having Vengreso.
Pleasure, sir. Cheers.
Thanks for joining.
That's NASP Leads to Growth. We out, baby.